In this series, we have established that the foundation theory can explain many things. It can explain the existence of our minds, the existence of matter, and the existence of morality. In this video, I'm going to go over how the foundation theory can also explain the existence of all math and reason itself. Let's begin. In our previous video, we went over the moral landscape. Just as there are moral rules and principles that compromise the moral landscape, so too there is a mathematical landscape. To see this landscape, we can look inside our minds. We have mathematical principles inside our own minds. We can understand that 2 plus 2 will always equal 4. There are two features of the mathematical landscape I want to draw your attention to. The first feature is about the size of the mathematical landscape. Mathematics does not fit entirely inside our minds. The mathematical landscape includes many truths we have yet to see or verify. This means that these principles don't depend on our sight to them. Furthermore, these mathematical truths were true before any human minds existed. Square circles were always impossible, even before any humans had any concept of a square or a circle. Now, it is true that we have invented symbols so that we could communicate mathematical principles. But the principles don't need to be communicated in order to be true. The mathematical landscape exists in objective reality. A mathematical thought is correct if it matches a mathematical reality. So, while you can see mathematical reality from within your own mind, the principles of mathematics do not depend on your particular thoughts. Secondly, the principles of mathematics are constant. That is, that they never change. 2 plus 2 will always equal 4. So in summary, the mathematical landscape extends beyond our minds. And secondly, the mathematical landscape never changes. Now, how do we explain the existence of this mathematical landscape? My answer is the foundation theory. We have already seen in previous videos how the foundation theory can be the foundation for the mental and moral dimensions of our world. The same is true for mathematics. A foundation's nature is perfectly robust. A foundation of everything has constant eternal existence, which means that the mathematical nature has constant and eternal existence. This means that math is not a coincidence at all, but rather it is grounded in the foundation's nature. Mathematical principles have the same structure as a thought, which means that it is best explained by a mathematical and mind-like foundation. In other words, the mathematical landscape can be in a mathematical mind. A mental foundation provides construction materials for consciousness, matter, moral, sensations, and moral qualities. And in addition, a mental foundation provides the deepest possible explanation of the mathematical landscape. Furthermore, grounding mathematics into a mathematical mind may also help to solve another problem, which is the paradox about propositions. It goes like this. Considering the following proposition, P, all the propositions that describe other propositions are about other propositions. And so either P describes itself or not. However, both lead to a contradiction. Suppose first P describes itself, then P is among the propositions it describes. Yet P only describes propositions about other propositions. Hence P does not describe itself. But if it does not describe itself, then that means that it is among the propositions that it describes. This is because P, by definition, describes all the propositions that do not describe themselves. Hence, P is a proposition that does describe itself if it does not. Either way, however, we have a contradiction. A solution to this paradox would be to say that some propositions have a dependent nature. This means that dependent propositions don't automatically exist. P doesn't automatically exist among the proposition it describes because P is dependent, and for this reason P does not describe itself. Now, the only materials that we know of that propositions can ever depend on would be concepts. When you bring to mind the proposition that 1 plus 2 equals 3, you will organize some concept of some numbers together. Now, if we say that propositions can exist independently of prior concepts, then nothing stops propositions from already existing prior to all concepts. We can avoid this paradox by saying that the mental foundation has the resources to explain sequentially existing propositions. A mental foundation can conceptualize propositions just as we can. So propositions depend on prior concepts, and mathematical propositions exist prior to concepts in creaturely minds. And so, mathematical propositions depend on a foundational mind with foundational concepts. Now, like with mathematics, we can also recognize principles of reason within our own minds. We can use reason to infer that nothing is both true and false at the same time. By reason, we can see how an ultimate source of all dependent things could have the resources to produce a universe with minds, matter, morals, and math. This same foundation can also explain reason itself. The foundation's resources include mental resources, and the foundation lacks arbitrary limits, and so it follows by reason that the foundation has resources without arbitrary limits. The only mentally resourceful nature without arbitrary limits is a nature that includes perfect rules of reasoning. Anything less than perfect has a limit with respect to its power to reason. A mental foundation without limits, then, has the power to reason perfectly. To reason perfectly is to follow the perfect principles of reason. This helps explain how we can even reason in the first place. The foundation of reason is also the foundation of morals. These moral principles are themselves reasons to produce a world with other minds who can explore and discover things. If the foundation has these principles of reason within its nature, then the foundation has reasons to produce a world with other minds. Now imagine by contrast a bunch of material stuff springing into existence from nothing with no mind behind it. If people come from a mindless foundation, then reasoning comes from non-reason. Every thought, then, ultimately arises from thoughtlessness. The ultimate basis of all your thoughts is literally nonsense. A mindless foundation has no reason to produce people. Without an ultimate mind, there is no reason to produce people, and there are no resources to produce people, and there is no way that the principles of reason themselves could exist. By the lights of reason, we can see that reason must exist at the foundation. Without reason at the ground layer of reality, then nothing could make sense. Without reason, there would be nothing. No math, no logic, and no reason to produce other minds. Reason frees your mind from errors so that you may discover the real nature of the foundation. If the foundation consists merely of mindless materials, then it lacks the thought-like principles of mathematics and logic. A mindless foundation, therefore, does not predict any principles of proper thinking. A mindless foundation literally has no reason within it. It has no reason to produce the sort of beings who can comprehend the principles of reason. A mental foundation, by contrast, has good reason to value things like minds, who can use reasons themselves, and therefore it is far more likely that the foundation for reality has reason, and therefore has a mental and moral nature as well. Finally, a perfect, rational foundation with no arbitrary limits could never violate the laws of logic or the rules of mathematics. The laws of logic are the principles of reason, and so to violate the laws of logic then, the foundation would actually lack a rational and mathematical nature. So the foundation cannot have impossible powers. It is not an arbitrary limit to be unable to do impossible things. Therefore, we can see how the foundation for reality can ground math and reason, and why this foundation also cannot violate math and reason. In the next video, we are going to explore how the foundation theory can explain the existence of value.